Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this one, I wanted to give you a quick introduction to honeypots. I'm just going to call it Honeypots 101 and just see what they are, what kind of honeypots you can deploy in your own environment, when to deploy it, and we'll take a look at one or maybe two different kind of honeypots and how to set it up. Okay, so let's just get started. So if you think about what honeypots are, okay, these are really closely monitored resource. Okay, it could be one or it could be multiple. If you have multiple honeypots, you actually call it Honeynet. So let's just think that it's one particular resource or a virtual machine or even a hardware device that is vulnerable, and you know about the vulnerability, and you want to keep it vulnerable so that somebody from outside they will get in and try to exploit the system, and your intention is to figure out how they are coming in and what kind of attacks they're trying to do. So they're really designed to identify and track potential attack to other systems. Okay, so you would integrate all the logging back to some kind of alerting system like your SIM solution maybe, to figure out what is going on when somebody is starting an attack. But this is kind of the 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 reason why you would have and he would deploy honeypots in your network. So honeypot is really not a production system. Okay, that is very important for you to understand. Although it may look like a production system, but it is not. It is vulnerable. You would be patching and everything for your other production servers, but you will not do that for your honeypot. Now, since you know that it's not a real production system, for your internal user, there is no real need for them to connect to this particular machine, right? Whatever IP address it has. So anytime you see a connection, that is likely to be suspicious. And any connection attempt to your honeypot should be logged and should be investigated. Now, if you think about NIDS, network intrusion detection system, sometimes those they go by the heuristics, and they also identify attacks in your network, but oftentimes they have a very high false positives. But with honeypots, you kind of know that if somebody is really trying to get into your system, probably they're doing something fishy, and so it's got a less chance of false positive. So you really get some data, some information that you can analyze and figure out what kind of attack is possible in your network. Now, the honeypots can be configured to run many kind of operating system: Windows, Linux, Mac, even routers, switches. And also, if you don't want to run a full operating system, you can run just a service like say that port 22. You can just emulate a port and say that's open. You can open some other ports, you can run a fake database server, things like that. Okay, so it's really a decoy, and your goal is to understand what other people can do to you. So let's go to the next page. So here, types of honeypots. When you think about honeypots, or when you get some knowledge about honeypots, you will see there are two different kinds. They're primarily the high interaction honeypot, and you will see another one. They are named as the low interaction honeypot, and they're pretty much self-explanatory. A high interaction honeypot, that means it requires a lot of configuration from your side, and it's fully featured virtual machine with everything. Okay, you can even think about your own host machine. If it's not patched for a long time, you can think that that is actually a really high interaction honeypot. It's not patched, and you can just connect that back to your SIM tool and kind of see what is going on, who is trying to attack your system. So if you go through this bullet point that I have written down, so high interaction honeypot, it provides a real system the attacker can interact with. It can be fully compromised. So because it's a real system, once the attacker got in, he can go through multiple different places and compromise other stuff. Okay, and then once he is in there, he can start attacking other parts of the network from there. Okay, This is also, that means it's a high risk environment. Okay, so you are letting one attacker to come and get into your network in a virtual machine that is vulnerable. So it's high risk, so you have to be make sure, you have to control what these people can do. Give me 1 second. All right, sorry about that. So you have to understand what the attacker can do, how they can go from one system to another, and if you fail to detect their movement, your other systems might be compromised. So that is this the reason I consider this honeypots is a very very high risk environment, especially the high interaction one. So higher maintenance, because of the higher risk, it's a higher maintenance, so you have to know what kind of alerts that you should be logging, what kind of activity, that the alert that should be integrated with the SEIM. And so it could be very time consuming, and again, if it generates whole bunch of alerts, somebody has to still look at it, figure out what happened. And also, because it's a full featured system, your installation process could be very very complex. Okay, because you are maintaining a complex infrastructure. Now, to be honest, I don't in my work experience, like I have not worked in a lot of companies, but I work for in a government based companies, government contractor companies, big enterprise in the financial sector, and also in the healthcare sector. In my experience, I have not seen a high interaction honeypot really placed in a production environment. If they did, that is beyond my knowledge. But for the smaller companies, I have not seen this, because to me, placing this is adding more work, more risk, and maintenance. If you have a smaller IT staff, probably just maintaining this could be challenging. And I'll talk about the placement just in a little bit. Now coming back to the low interaction honeypot. So this honeypot, okay, this, as I said, it simulates only a parts of a system, so it's not a full virtual machine. So it could be a network stack, or a service that you are trying to place as a honey, or lure somebody saying this is a vulnerable database, something like that. So what it does, it offers limited interaction opportunity for the attacker. So attacker, when it comes, since you are not exposing everything, he only has access to a database maybe, but not the whole operating system. So he cannot exploit the complete operating system. And this typically you can figure out the worm activity. If there is a worm in your network and it's going through it and it uses certain ports, you can kind of track down what is going on. So the best useful feature of this kind of honeypot is a very simple to implement and maintain, easy installation. Mostly pre-configured steps. You have few things you may have to configure here and there, but not too complicated, as complicated as the high interaction. And finally, what I like is the low risk environment. So I'm not exposing the whole virtual machine, so I know exactly what I'm exposing, so I know exactly what to monitor. So to me, this is a low risk. And if I'm getting started with honeypots in my production environment, if that's a mandatory thing, say upper management, they really wants this to be installed and handled, that is what I'm going to start with. Now, so type of honeypots, you can also think about what kind of honeypots are there. It could be a real appliance or could be virtual. Probably you will see virtual one a lot more these days, since everything is in the cloud and we all like virtualization, and it's so simple to manage virtualization. So before I move forward to the next slide, which is over here, Honeynet, we talked about it just a little bit, but let's just come over here. I just did a search for a network diagram with firewall, and I'm just choosing one of these pictures in here just to kind of explain. And thank you umldiagram.org for doing this diagram that I'm using in my lecture today. So if somebody asks you where to put a honeypot, where would you put it? So if this is the internet and your traffic is coming to the router, okay, one of the places that you can put right over here, even before it hits the router, so you know what is going on, and it's kind of a safe place to put, but you may be burdened with lots and lots of attacks because nothing is filtered. Okay, everybody can access to this particular honeypot. A lot of times you can put it, over here, or and when you go behind the firewall, that is where you are actually getting less number of traffic. But typically, as a rule of thumb, a lot of people say, okay, if you have money, if you have 10 production servers, maybe put 3, like if you have every 10, you gotta have 3. Okay, so in a 10 server, maybe you have 7 true servers and 3 honeypots. And kind of the reason that you want honeypots even within your network, say, there is no reason for any of the other people to come to the honeypot servers. So if you know that someone is getting into the system from the internet or from anywhere else, so you know that there might be some firewall rules or some method that people are using, that is something is not secure in your firewall or in your protocol or your design in your security, that is letting people from outside your network to get into your honeypots. Does it make sense? So when I'm showing this, so maybe say this is not a DNS server, this is your honeypot server, and you notice something is going on that is coming from the internet, and you know that it should not be coming from the internet, so you know that somebody breached something, and you can start doing your investigation. Similarly, based on your money, your funding, your budget, you can think about what to purchase. There are commercial grade honeypots, there are open source honeypots, and then you also have to think about the maintenance and this stuff, and looking at the report, integration with SEIM tools, all of that. All right, so coming back to my slides again, so here I have one, Honeynet. We kind of talked about it. Honeynet is something when you connect multiple honeypots and create a network. So you are giving the attacker an opportunity to feel like he is really doing a lateral movement within the network. So when he has breached this, maybe you have placed another honeypot here, he did another in-map to figure out other IPs, and he can now move from this server to that server, and he has found a weak password or something like that. So that created a honeynet and gave that attacker a real feel like, yeah, I'm doing something and I'm moving from one place to another. So one thing that people typically use is called Honeywall. So when you have the honeypots, so what you can do, you can put another Honeywall. It's a layer 2 bridge, okay, and that controls all the traffic that actually goes to your honeypots. So instead of looking at every single honeypot, you can put tight control on alerting, on looking at your traffic on your Honeywall device, and have that monitored very, very closely, so you know what is going on, and you know the traffic cannot bypass that Honeywall to go in or out of your networks. Okay, so come back over here again. As I said, it's a layer 2 device. It separates the Honeynet infrastructure from the rest of the network, and again, all traffic has to go through the Honeywall and must be logged. So some tools. Okay, so this is slide that I kept here because a lot of honeypots, they have a banner. A banner is something like, for example, Nmap. So when Nmap does a network scanning, it will send some packets to all of the IPs. The IPs will send some packets back. When the IPs is sending the packets back, if it's a Windows system, it will have a different banner. If it's a Linux system, it will have a different banner. If it's a database, it will have a different banner. So based on the banner, Nmap can tell, okay, you are a Windows 10, okay, you are a Red Hat 8, stuff like that. Same thing your attackers, they can also do. They can run an Nmap, and if you have configured your Honeymap and you have not changed the banner file, they can figure out, hey, I'm coming in, but this system, it looks like a honeypot. The other thing sometimes the attacker can do is honeypots, if you're just up and running for like years and years, so they will know it's running for too long, or if you take down for very quickly, and you have some method that you are using container, maybe you are destroying and recreating, and they're looking at your uptime is very small, then also they can think, yes, something is not right. So these are some of the tools even attacker they might use to figure out whether they're attacking a real system or it's a honeypot for them. Okay, so we already talked about honeypot, and I already said your personal laptop, my personal laptop, can be considered a honeypot, because I mean, if I don't patch it, it's vulnerable now, and it's a fully fledged system, and if it's compromised, an attacker, they can use my system to do whole bunch of crazy thing, right? They can even attack other systems, and that brings us to another point. So you also have to think about the legal issues. If you have a honeypot that you have placed kind of internet facing, and somebody compromised that, that is compromised, you are monitoring their activity, but they figured out how to use your honeypot server to attack other people outside your network. So that is not a good thing. So that creates some additional risk for you. So you kind of have to understand and figure out how much risk you want to tolerate with this type of Honeywall honeypot or Honeynet. Okay, so some examples of honeypot, there are a whole bunch. Some of them they're enterprise grade, some of them are open source. There's one Honeyed, Argus, Labria, Tiny Honeypot, Valhalla Honeypot, MHN, and Teapot. So in this example, what we will do, let's configure MHN honeypot. Okay, so if you just do a MHN honeypot, it will bring you to our GitHub page for this. So if you go to the GitHub page, this is one of the popular honeypot. MHN really stands for the modern honey network. And if you look at it, it's a centralized server for management and data collection of honeypots. MHN allows you to deploy sensor quickly and to collect data immediately viewable from a neat web interface. Okay, honeypot deploy script includes several common honeypot technologies: Snort, Cowrie, Dione, Glassstaff, among others. Okay, there are a whole bunch. At least I have seen 7 or 8, and we'll take a look into that shortly. So feature, MHN is a Flask application, exposes HTTP API that honeypots can use to download or deploy script, connect and register, download a Snort rules, send intrusion detection logs. It also allows system administrator to view a list of new attacks and manage Snort rules, enable, disable, and download. So the installation process is fairly straightforward. Just make sure that you are using Ubuntu 18.4 or Ubuntu 16.04. If you are using CentOS, use CentOS 6.9. The other versions, it may work, but it's not supported. So what I'll try to do, I'm just gonna go to Azure. I'm gonna create this in Azure environment, and let's just create a virtual machine first. Okay, and I'm gonna create one virtual machine. Looks like I have already one in here under Ubuntu group. That's fine. I'm just gonna create one new virtual machine. I actually have 2 of them running. What I'll do, I'm gonna create a new resource group. I'm just gonna call it Honeypot RG. Okay, and MHN, modern honey network server, and let's try EastUS, see if we can deploy in EastUS, and Ubuntu 18 is fine, and size, I'm gonna go with the 8 gigs memory. That is what is recommended. I'm gonna use password. I'm gonna use student and then a secure password. Now try the same password again. Okay, and then I'm gonna keep the port 22 open, and next go to disk, and I want to see what is, so there is nothing attached. I can attach a new disk in here. Let's see, and 1024 gigs, that is fine, and just hit OK, and I'm gonna go to networking and gonna go with all the one that's available in here. Select inbound ports. I'm gonna also allow HTTP for 84.443. RDP I don't need. Then management, I don't need to do anything. Go to advanced tags, don't need anything. Review and create, and just give it a second to check for the validation, and just gonna hit the create to create this virtual machine. So once this machine is created, we are going to try to use this machine to install our MHN server. Okay, again, I have given it at least 8 gigs of RAM because I think it's going to run a whole bunch of services, and at least 8 gigs of RAM is probably what you will end up needing. So it shouldn't take too long, but while this is going on, I'm just going to pause the video, and once it's done, I'll come back. Actually, it's already done. So let's just go to the resource, and over here, what I'll do, this is my IP address. Okay, I'm gonna copy the IP address, and actually hold on, this is the public, this is the public. This should not be anything running right now. Yeah, it's unable to connect because there is nothing running. What I'll do, I'll just open up a shell window and do SSH student at, and then I'm just gonna give you this IP and hit enter, say yes, and I need the password now. And I have provided the password, and there we go. So now it says I'm inside this server, right? So now this server does not have anything too much, and then I'm gonna go back in here and I'll go through this. So in Ubuntu, one thing that you need is the git, because we're gonna run some command that requires git. Excuse me. So I'm gonna put okay, this is, it is picking up this $, which I don't want, so I'm just gonna go. So this is really cd to opt, so it's going to the OPT folder. Once you go in the OPT folder, you're gonna clone this particular repository from the git. So sudo git clone and the repository URL. So it's got everything. Now we're gonna go inside the MHN folder. Okay, so we are there, so we have completed this. Once you're there, you can see there's a install.sh file. It's executable because it's green. We're gonna install that file, so we're gonna /install. You must be root, so just do sudo and hit enter, and the installation should start quickly. Okay, so this is going on, and this may take a little bit of time, and once this installation is done, we are going to go through the configuration, but let's see what happens. And we'll have to configure some of them, but you don't need to configure all of them. But I'll just let it run for a second, and it is going to probably stop and ask for whether you need to run in a debug mode. You just need to say no in there, and once it's got all the things that it needs, it's also going to download whole bunch of rules that it uses for the detection. So I'm going to pause my video now, and let this to install, and it may take about 5 minutes for you. So just give yourself some time and be patient, and it will get everything, and we'll continue in a little bit. Okay, so you probably have come to this step where it's asking, do you wish to run in debug mode? Here I'm just gonna say no, and now here it is gonna set up some email. Okay, so if you look at the direction over here as well, so here you just need to provide, here they're also recommending that you do it debug mode, make it no. Here I'm just gonna call and say, let's see, say we are using student, so student at say student.com. That is what the email that I'm just gonna use. Super user password, I'm just gonna use same password that I used to log into the server. And server base URL, and this, you see that it automatically picked up the IP address of this particular machine that is running in my Azure environment. So I'm just gonna hit enter. Honeymap URL, it's also picked up, and if you notice the Honeymap is running on port 3000. That is fine. I'm gonna hit enter. Mail server address, I'm also gonna hit enter. Mail server port, gonna hit enter. Use TLS for email. Let's see what they're recommending. So they're saying no and no. If you want to use TLS for email, there's really a configuration file you can go and change. So maybe just go with yes and yes for this. So maybe say yes, use TLS, and yes, SSL and TLS for email. Yeah, do that. Mail server username, I'm not going to configure anything, but path to log file, I'm just going to go with the default one. So here I'm just going to enter mail server, mail default sender, enter, and path to log file, enter. So that's all kind of you have to configure. And again, all of these, they are going to be in a conf file that you can go and you can change anytime. Okay, so this is what is going to take some time. Again, this is initializing a database, and here you need to be patient, and it can take several minutes. What it's going to do, it's going to start downloading the rules, and you will see that they will show up line after lines after lines. Okay, so that's about it. So what I'll do, once this is done, once all of this installation is done, it will also ask you to whether you would like to integrate with Splunk, ELK, and the firewall, and we are not going to do that at this time. So I'm just going to give it just a little bit of time, and once I'm ready to the next phase, I'm going to restart. Okay, actually it started, so I just want to show you. So it imported 500 rules right now, and it will like go through and keep adding more lines. Like I added 10,000 rules, 20,000 rules. There are probably a whole bunch, like it's in tens of thousands of rules that it's going to download, and that is why it's going to take some time. So I'm going to pause and be back in a second for you. Thank you. Alright, just I want to show you some progress. It's been probably 2 minutes, and it's downloaded already 7,500 rules. And I'm gonna pause back again. And next time when I'm back, I'll be back once it's asking to do me the next step in this configuration. Be back in a second. Alright everyone, so we are at a spot where my installation actually paused, and it is asking, hey, would you like to integrate with Splunk? And for this one, I'm just gonna say no. Next, it's asking ELK support. Do you want this? I'm gonna say no. And the third one is asking me, do you want to configure the UFW? And I am going to say no for this one as well. So so let's just wait for just a minute, and we are very close to deploy this particular. Yeah, we are done. So it says complete the installation of all MHN packages. So what I would recommend, you come down here and absolutely run this particular command. Okay, so you should have all these services that in the running state. If some of them are not running, so that you know that your deployment something went wrong. So what I'll do, I'll come down to here again, paste it and hit enter, and it looks like a whole bunch of them running. I'm just gonna count even 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 of the services that are running. I'm gonna go back where in the this is the page. So here 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and I said 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So all of them are running, so I'm pretty happy with my installation. Next, if we want, by default MHN will run without HTTPS. We can configure if we like. Right now I'm not gonna do that. If we see like it's needed, we will configure that. All right, so the next thing that you really need to do, so we first need to connect to that Honeypot. So one thing that I'm also going to do, I'm going to come to Azure, and this is my MHN server. I'm going to come to the networking, and here if you see I don't have port 3000 open, so I'm going to add an inbound rule, and from any source to any port range destination, any IP address, what I'll do, destination port range is 3000. Okay, and I'm going to allow port 3000, so we can go, and 3000 is where the map is hosted, so that is why you will end up needing this particular security rule. So it's saying creating security rule, and that rule should be added momentarily. So we know the public IP is, now this is added, right? So now I know the public IP is this. If I copy this one and let's try to go to this IP, hopefully we'll see something. Yeah, there we go. So let's see if I remember, student.com is probably what I used, and password. Okay, so this is the username and password that we have entered during the configuration. Hopefully they are good. So that's about it. So what you are saying, it's not using HTTPS at the moment. As I said, that you can configure if you like, but your Honeypot is now up and running. So what you can do, you can go to the map view over here, and this is the map that is actually running in 3000, and it is not showing anything at the moment for whatever reason. Okay, so the way that you do really, I'm not really sure why it's not showing the map. Typically this map is displayed on this particular page. Okay, it took actually some time to show up. So if you even stay on this map, okay, so in this particular server I have a Honeypot, okay, that is now deployed. What I need to do, I really need to now configure some sensors. So if you now go and look at the sensors, and you see I have nothing configured, so there is no sensor that is now configured. And what we need to do, we need to come back to deploy. Okay, and you can deploy a script, you can deploy a whole bunch of honeypots. So we're gonna try the Dione one first. So if you click on that one, so this is what you need to run, okay, in the server that you want to manage, okay, using this honeypot. So this one we are gonna deploy in this server as well. So this is the main MHN server. So I'm gonna install it and hit copy that command and paste it, and I need to add sudo, and there we go. So now it's installing that particular sensor. Okay, and this installation doesn't take too long. So while this is going on, I'm gonna come back to the virtual machine shade. I'm gonna go back to the Honeypot RG. So what I did, I also deployed another virtual machine, and I just called it a client machine. It's not a very powerful machine, and it's only got like probably 3 gigs of memory. So what I would like to do, I would like to install the same sensor in this machine as well. So what is going to happen, this sensor will be available in 2 different machines. Actually, let's see. So this is, let's just don't get ahead of ourselves. So let's just finish installation of this particular sensor, and it should be done momentarily. This shouldn't take too long, so I'm not pausing my video. So it's almost there, there we go. So it's now it's all done. Okay, so that sensor, so what you should do to make sure that your sensor is working properly, now you come back over here, click on view sensors, and that sensor is now showed up. Okay, now Dione is a honeypot, so that is the type of honeypot. Now I have deployed where this is deployed in this particular server. Okay, where I have the main MHN server installed. Okay, so what I'll do, as I said, I'm gonna go back over here, go to the virtual machine, and as the client machine, I'm gonna click on that one, copy the client machine IP. So this is where I have not installed anything. So if I go there, okay, just put this and hit enter, there's nothing there. There's something else. There's like an Apache is installed, but this is not the main MHN server. Okay, but I want to manage and monitor traffic to this server as well. Like I want to deploy the sensor in this server as well. So what I can do, I can do a SSH, and what it is, I'm already logged into this one. I did another SSH to the client machine, and here I'm gonna do the same thing, deploy and deploy Dione, copy this one again, come back to my command prompt, and this is, I'm in the client machine. I'm gonna put the command, hit enter. So this is now installing the sensor in a completely different machine. So we'll see, sometimes you may have to open some additional port that this machine can now talk to the other machine, but that is how you would install your agents in other machines if you like. So one other thing that I want to deploy is one other type of honeypot, that is the cowrie. This is a SSH honeypot, and very useful. So I'm going to copy this one, go back to my command prompt, and this is, I'm in the server. In the server, I'm also gonna paste this and hit enter again. I'm sorry, I have to put the sudo in here. Hit enter, and that should install my the other server, the cowrie server, and it should show up in our web interface. Okay, so let's just give it a minute and let's see what is going on with this one. This one is less powerful, so it may take some time to install, but looks like that is done. Over here looks like our cowrie is also added. So let's just go back to our Azure over here, go back to sensors and look at that. So we have installed 2 of our sensor in the MHN server IP. Okay, and we just installed 1 sensor in the client machine as well. And if I want the cowrie in the client machine, we can also run the same command over there. So come back over here and paste it there, and this is for cowrie, and hit enter, and that should get the cowrie installed. So let's come back over here and see what is going on. So now you pretty much have configured your sensors, and even on the sensors page, what you see, that is listing the number of attacks that it's registering. Okay, so again, you can also go back to the map view, and you can kind of even wait and see what is going on, and from what country your attack is originating. And I promise you that if you keep it running for few hours, you will start to see that this honeypot will start to register IPs from many different places. Like people, there are random people who will be scanning the whole internet for open IPs and open protocols, things like that, and it will start registering your attack. So let's just give it a second for the other sensor to get installed, and then we'll see the next step. Hello everyone. Another important thing that I forgot to mention earlier. In you already opened We already opened port 22 80 443, those two for HTTP and HTTPS. We opened port 3000 for the map, but you also have to use the port 10,000. You gotta make sure that is open. That is what your MHN server used to talk to the other servers, other agents and stuff like that. So make sure that is open. And once this is open, you can start generating some demo type commands as well. So like you can do some curl and try to talk to your client, and let's see what we have. So you can get couple of them and just do some curl -k and just go to the browser IPs, and maybe even try to SSH to, like, maybe try admin, see if that generates some kind of alert for us or not. So I'm just trying to generate some, because otherwise you will have to wait for a few hours to see what other people from the internet they're trying to do. So I'm just going to try a random password here. It wouldn't work. Try it again. Wouldn't work. And I'm just going to say Control C. So hopefully it will have some alerts over here. Let's just refresh this. So if you see over here, my MHN server Dione, it started registering our alerts, and okay, well, some of them are actually coming from some PCAP files, some from the server source IP 40.87.160.0, and let's just see what is my IP. Okay, so what is my IP? I'm just want to make sure that this is not the IP address that I'm using at the moment. So now it's just the IP address, and my IP address is not the one that are registered. So this nothing registered from me, but some of this IP address, it could be from the IP address of machine that we are using, that I used within the cloud environment to call and do the call command. So like if I go back in here, okay, so this is MSN server. So from here, if I do a call command to say this, and then come back over here to my, where is my sensor? My sensor, lost my sensor. So just go to your sensor one more time, sensors, and refresh and see if it's registered. So here something is registered. So there we go. So there is some other alerts are also starting to come up. So at this time you can also go to the map, and the map, if you wait just a little bit and expand, it may start to show you some connection, and from like different places to your server. It will show up once you have some data that are populated. So that's kind of what I wanted to show in this particular video. Try it out, see what you can do with these honeypots. And there is actually another honeypot that I also like very much, which is a teapot honeypot, and that's you know, I'll show you how to do that configuration in the next video. So in this video I just wanted to give you an introduction what it is, and kind of give you a feel of how to install, and give you some resources that you can use to get started and do some testing on your own. Hope you have learned something. If you like the video, please give me a like and subscribe for more videos in the future. Thank you.